The beak is very cool. Hello, this is Required Fields. Now, that intro there was the Crippler by Sodom. One of my viewers actually thought it would be a good idea for me, considering the way I actually dress in a black hoodie and it's a metal-centered video, to try to have theme music like a boxer and enter my video to that track. Well, it would be a good tune to use because it is an awesome song. It would be a good song to use if you're a wrestler or a boxer, a mixed martial arts fighter. So just some boxing punches and a few karate kicks just to kind of get that vibe. So anyways, that's just a request from one of my viewers I thought I'd implement. But anyways, I'm going to continue with the series Catalog Cripplers. And today we are going to be discussing now by a death metal band from Quebec called Cryptopsy, and this is their album The Unspoken King. This is number one of the metal albums that managed to derail a band's momentum in the metal community immensely. Now, in death metal from Cryptopsy is a death metal band from Quebec. Now, the band I'm wearing a shirt of Gorguts, wearing a shirt of their album Considered Dead right now. They're my favorite death metal band from Quebec, but I'd argue that Cryptopsy is most likely the most recognized death metal band from Quebec, and probably all of Canada as well. They'd probably be the first name if you ask somebody to mention a death metal band from Canada. I think Cryptopsy is probably the one that gets brought up most, I would assume. But anyways, Cryptopsy released their debut album, Blasphemy in Flesh, in 1994, and then followed up with this probably their most acclaimed album, None So Vile, in 1996. Then the original frontman, Lord Worm, left the band and was replaced with Mike DeSalvo for a well-received 1998 album, Whisper Supremacy, and then they released one last album of him at the helm, and then You'll Beg in 2001 before DeSalvo left. Then he was replaced with a vocalist named Martin Lacroix, who played on who performed on a live album called None So Live. Obviously, play on words in their album None So Vile. But after that, he left the group due to language communication issues. And he was replaced by the original vocalist Lord Worm again. It's kind of weird that Martin Lacroix only played the live album by Cryptopsy and never a studio album. That's kind of weird. I can't think of any other band whose vocalist who had a vocalist who only played the live album, never a studio album or demo of any kind. It's kind of weird. Anyways, and then they released one more album for original vocalist Lord Worm, which was not, before he left again. And then entered a new vocalist, Matt McGakey. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but yes. And then in 2008 they released an album, this album here, The Unspoken King, and the album was actually a departure from the band's death metal beginnings, and the group actually implemented, for those that have heard the album, elements of emo on the album and screamo on it. They have some clean vocal sections of the album that sound like that, like he's some type of emo or pop punk type singer. Yeah, that's going to mix well with death metal, isn't it? And anyways, the band had some deathcore elements, which I guess considering deathcore is usually influenced by often influenced by death metal to some degree. Hence the name. Death is in the name of both genres. Deathcore wouldn't be that much of a stretch if it's just elements of that, but elements of emo in your sound is really not going to go over well. For example, the track they actually leaked onto the album, Bemoan the Martyr, actually has some clean vocal sections that sound more in place on a emo or pop punk band's albums than it does any type of death metal band albums. Now, I understand that maybe Cryptopsy just wanted to do something different after a while, which is understandable, but if they are going to implement elements of those genres, like emo into their sound, or screamo, then the best option would have been to have made a side project out of it as opposed to releasing it under the Cryptopsy banner. And yes, and the reviews from the metal community were absolutely horrific. And some people would actually expect after it dropped for they'd blame it on the new vocalist and get either Lord Worm or Mike DeSalvo back. The album really derailed the band's momentum. They were probably the most discussed Canadian death metal band in the 2000s. Although I know they released their debut album in 1994, but probably from the late 1990s upward, I think they're the most, like I said, at the start of the video, they're probably the most recognized death metal band from Canada as a whole, in and of themselves. But yes, the Unspoken King actually did have some death metal elements that did, although they didn't sound like the earlier Cryptopsy albums, which is understandable to a point, because I understand some bands might want to progress and not just do the same thing over and over again. But really, did they really think that including like emo elements in their sound was really going to be something that was going to go over well with their fan base? Yeah, it was a really bad decision. Horrifying album, and after this, the band did not actually fire Matt McGeechy. Some cases, some bands released albums that were horribly received with new vocalists, such as Van Halen, for instance. After Gary Cherone, they released their Van Halen 3 album in 1998, and he left the band after that album, as the overwhelming majority of the fans absolutely hated that album, and people say that he was fired, probably that he was actually out of the band basically because I wouldn't say he was fired, but basically I don't remember exactly 100% the circumstances, but I think he might have been pressured to leave. But it wasn't to be on good terms nonetheless. But basically everyone hated the album, and Cryptopsy actually kept Matt McGeechy and released a self-titled album. I'm going to assume maybe they self-titled it possibly to maybe emphasize a new beginning for the band. And basically it was more of a straightforward death metal sound with none of the deathcore or emo elements that actually plagued the Unspoken King. But since then, they really have they've released a couple of EPs, but they almost never seem to get discussed on their newer recordings by the death metal scene anymore. And at least not in the death metal, the metal and death metal oriented communities I post at, they seem to be almost never be brought up anymore. And it seems I have no idea if they're working on new material right now or not, but they released an EP. They released 2 EPs since they released the full-length, self-titled full-length album, which was much better received than this, but as a whole, I think you could say that the Unspoken King totally derailed Cryptopsy's momentum, and they're not really seen as a force to be reckoned with that they were in death metal prior to releasing it. Even if they have actually moved away from the mistake of implementing deathcore and emo. Well, emo is more of a mistake than deathcore, really, considering that deathcore is a lot closer to traditional death metal. But either way, the band is really barely gets discussed anymore, and in the metal community. So I think it's safe to say that this is one of those catalog cripplers that really hurt a band's career in the long run. Anyways, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is Required Fields signing off. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.